Welcome, voyagers. Tonight, we bring you the unhurried account of a man who circled the globe not for glory, but for profit. An English privateer named Woodes Rogers. Along the way, he encountered poor weather, hostile coasts, temperamental crewmen, and, most famously, a single castaway on a lonely island, whose rescue would quietly echo into literary history. If you enjoy our storytelling, unrushed, factual, and mostly damp, please consider liking and subscribing. It encourages us to keep charting this very slow course. Now, let us proceed with the story. A Whisper from the Island Without Time. The Logs of Captain Woodes Rogers, 1708 to 1711. Logbook entry, July 31st, 1708. Location: Downs off the coast of England. Weather: mild, fair skies, steady southern breeze. The morning rose over the downs with a pale gold glow, catching the sails of the Duke and the Duchess in a wash of quiet brilliance. I stood at the stern, my hand resting on the rail, and felt the steady rhythm of the tide beneath us. A rhythm that soon would give way to the unpredictability of the open sea. The air carried a salt-kissed softness, and though the day was fair, the gulls circled low, as if reminding us that nature seldom remains gentle for long. Today marks the beginning of a venture bold and uncertain, a privateering expedition sanctioned by Her Majesty's government. 2 ships, 2 captains, and 2 crews with hopes filled as much with silver as with survival. The Duke, my charge, is a sturdy vessel, well armed, and manned by a mixed company of experienced sailors and ambitious lads. The Duchess, under Captain Stephen Courtney, sails in tandem, a fine ship, though I wonder at the mettle of her command. Courtney is a capable man, but he lacks a certain patience that such a voyage demands. Before departure, I walked the length of the deck, meeting eyes, offering words where words were needed, silence where silence sufficed. The men were busy, but watchful. They know as well as I that this enterprise walks a line between adventure and attrition. We are to sail westward first, making for the Canary Islands, then onward to South America, and eventually to the Pacific, seeking not only Spanish treasure ships, but knowledge, navigation, and the thin golden thread of glory that draws all men of the sea. My own reasons are not entirely bound to coin. I carry with me the journals of Dampier, another privateer, and a man both praised and despised. His charts, his musings, his errors and insights are my quiet companions. Where he failed, I hope to succeed. Where he doubted, I intend to believe. At midday, a final longboat rowed in from shore, bearing letters from families, final words from lovers, and parcels wrapped in oilskin. I received none, and that, I think, is for the best. A man without such ties sleeps more soundly on the swell. By late afternoon, the final stores were checked. Salted beef, hardtack, dried peas, casks of fresh water and rum, powder and ball, rope and canvas. The sea chest in my cabin contains more than charts and instruments. It holds my logbook, spare quills, a Bible, and a locket I never open. At dusk the order was given to weigh anchor. The wind favoured us, and the sails of both ships unfurled like the wings of swans. As the coastline began to drift away, dimming into the grey of oncoming night, I felt the first true breath of separation, of the land sliding backward into memory, and the sea stretching ahead into promise and peril. I dined alone in my cabin, noting every creak of the hull and rattle of the lantern. I sipped weak tea and wrote by the wavering flame. Tomorrow, the real voyage begins. Tonight, I let myself feel the quiet fear beneath the captain's calm. There is a whisper in the timbers, a whisper of the sea saying, "I remember those who came before. I remember those who never returned." Let this voyage not be one of them. Logbook entry, August 20th, 1708. Location, approaching Madeira, Eastern Atlantic. Weather, bright sun, light breeze from the northeast, gentle swells. This morning, the horizon broke with the green silhouette of Madeira. After weeks at sea, even the most hardened sailors lean over the rails at the sight of land, though they dare not say why. Madeira means reprieve, fresh fruit, sweet wine, and for some, a return to the warmth of earth beneath foot rather than deck. The voyage thus far has been fair, with wind mostly in our favour. The men have found rhythm in their duties, mending sails, scrubbing decks, manning the helm, and tending to the ever-thirsty rigging. Yet, I see in them a longing already, not for home, but for something nameless that the sea stirs up. It is a feeling I know well. The sea both fills and hollows a man. Last night, I walked the deck under stars so sharp they seemed to cut the heavens. I passed 2 midshipmen whispering about ghost ships. One had seen a strange light flicker on the far horizon. The other swore it was just lightning over water. I said nothing. The sea has its secrets, and men need theirs too. Captain Courtney dined aboard the Duke last evening. He brings with him the roughness of a man who has not yet lost, and thus has not yet learned the weight of command. He boasts too readily, laughs too loudly. But he listens, and that is a start. I offered him the counsel of patience. Whether in pursuit or retreat, the sea rewards the measured hand. Today we lowered boats and went ashore. The hills of Madeira are green and bright, the air scented with sugarcane and flowers. I allowed the men time to stretch their legs, to drink and sing and laugh. It does good to remind them they are human still and not merely parts of the ship. I walked inland briefly, alone, to a chapel set upon a hill. There I knelt, not with words, but with silence. The stillness of the place echoed the vast quiet of the sea. We resupplied without trouble. Casks of water and wine, barrels of oranges, crates of dried figs and almonds. All brought aboard and stowed under the watch of my quartermaster, a Scotsman named McGraw, who counts like a banker and curses like a poet. As we set sail again, Madeira fading astern, I feel the pull of the voyage tightening once more. We follow the trade winds now, westward toward the wide unknown. Selkirk is not yet in our story, but already I feel a presence on the breeze, as if something watches from beyond the horizon. The sea, perhaps, whispering again. Logbook entry, September 9th, 1708. Location, Mid-Atlantic, en route to Brazil. Weather, overcast skies, moderate wind, rolling swells with occasional thunder. We are well past the Canary Islands now, and the great Atlantic stretches around us in a dome of restless grey. Clouds gather low and steady, and while no great storm has broken upon us, the swells roll heavy beneath the ships. Thick-backed and slow, like leviathans drifting just below. Each morning we rise damp, the sails weeping with dew, the deck slick underfoot. The men grumble more and tempers show their teeth. I've ordered double watches and tightened the distribution of rum. Fairness must never be mistaken for laxity. This part of the voyage tests patience more than courage. There is no enemy to fight, no shore to spy, only the endless breathing of the sea and the quiet wearing down of resolve. It is here that good captains are forged, not by action, but by the strength to maintain order when the world seems paused. Below deck I hear songs in the night, some low and mournful, others bawdy and defiant. I permit them. It is better the men sing their weariness than let it curdle into mutiny. The cook, a one-eyed Irishman named Keane, has taken to boiling oranges with cloves. The scent carries through the midship like a reminder of Christmas. It comforts them, even in its simplicity. My own hours are filled with Dampier's pages and the stars above. The journal I carry of his last voyage is spotted with ink and salt, his handwriting cramped but expressive. I find solace in his doubt, for it mirrors my own. So many of his entries end in questions, not answers. Perhaps that is the truest form of exploration. Courtney remains steady, if not inspired. He presses his men harder than I do mine, and I worry it may crack them. A sailor is not a drum to be beaten until hollow. He is a compass, more useful when properly aligned. We sighted flying fish today, leaping like sparks over the waves. A sign, perhaps, that we approach warmer waters. McGraw tells me the barometer is rising and that we may see sun within a day or two. I hope he's right. Even I feel the need for light. As I sit at my desk, quill scratching this page by the glow of the ship's lantern, I find myself thinking of time. At sea, the calendar loses meaning. There is only night and day, hunger and fullness, silence and song. And perhaps that is the truth of things, that time is not measured in hours, but in distance and longing. We sail west, and with each league I feel the world behind us receding, becoming more dream than memory. Soon we will near Brazil, and from there the long reach southward toward the Horn. But tonight there is only this floating world, the rhythm of wood and wave, and the faintest whisper in the wind. It says, "Not all who are lost are forgotten." Logbook entry, October 12th, 1708. Location off the coast of Brazil near Recife. Weather humid, shifting winds, distant thunderheads. Landfall is near. The coast of Brazil rises before us in a haze of green and gold, the shoreline dappled with palms and low hills that seem to ripple in the afternoon heat. It is a lush vision, but we approach it with caution. Spain and Portugal watch these waters, and not all who fly a friendly flag do so in earnest. The last week has tested us. Though the sea has calmed, the heat has grown oppressive. Below deck the air is close and thick, and tempers flare more easily than powder. I have had to settle 2 near brawls, one over a woman remembered too fondly, the other over a card game played with too many missing teeth. I find that tired men are prone to seeing ghosts in one another. Today, we took on fresh water from a stream that spills into a rocky cove. I sent a landing party ashore with empty barrels, guarded by 6 armed men. They returned with water, citrus, and news, signs of native canoes upriver, but no human presence nearby. The jungle presses close to the shore here, alive with sound and scent. Birds that cry like monkeys, insects that hum like kettle drums. The air itself feels thick with breath. I walked the deck with McGraw this evening as the sun burned low behind the horizon, turning the sea a bruised purple. We spoke of the cape ahead, of the Horn and its fury. He asked if I believed we would make it round. I said belief had little to do with it. Men have faced the Horn with full sails and prayers, and still fed the sea. Courtney has grown more watchful. He questions my decisions more often, though never in front of the men. I welcome the challenge, if kept civil. A voyage like this should not rest on one man's instinct alone. We spotted a sail earlier today, too far to catch, too distant to identify. It turned southward, away from the coast. A Spanish trader, perhaps, or a vessel like ours, wary of strangers. I felt a pang, watching it fade. So few ships in these vast waters. Each one a story adrift. At night I hear the creak of the rudder, like a voice half asleep, calling out through the timber. The ship dreams with me. In that place between sleep and wake, I sometimes feel we are sailing not through water, but through memory. We leave Brazil soon, the Horn awaits. Dampier's notes grow thin here. Much of what lies ahead is written not in ink, but in ice, and in the brittle resolve of men. Still, I feel we are drawing closer. To what, I cannot say. Only that something waits. Logbook entry, November 3rd, 1708. Location: South Atlantic. Latitude approximately 35 degrees south. Weather: overcast skies, cool breeze from the southwest, rising swells. We have sailed well beyond the bulge of Brazil, and now chart a course south along the coast of what the Spanish call the Rio de la Plata. The open Atlantic here grows colder by the day. The sky remains heavy and close, a vault of steel above our sails, and the wind has begun its long shift from kind companion to restless adversary. I have instructed the helmsman to begin easing our approach toward the Patagonian coast. We are bound for a known anchorage, Port Desire, as marked on Dampier's charts. It is said to offer shelter, fresh water, and game. I pray the Spanish have not established a presence there, though I judge it unlikely. These shores are harsh and poorly settled, better suited to guanacos than governors. The crew is in middling spirits. The transition from equatorial warmth to these grey, shifting waters has thinned their cheer. A few suffer from ague. Keen doses them with lemon peel and hopes. I have set rations to conserve our stores, knowing the passage to the Pacific may prove lean. We are not yet near the Horn, but already the voyage tests our balance, between boldness and caution, between hunger and patience. Courtney has taken to writing more, I believe. His second has twice asked for ink from my steward. Perhaps even he now sees that this voyage will not be measured merely in coins seized, but in miles endured and decisions survived. Last night, just before the dog watch, we sighted a pod of whales, a dozen at least, surfacing in unison like shadows come alive. One of the midshipmen called it an omen. I agreed, but did not say of what. We sail on. Logbook entry, December 1st, 1708. Location: Port Desire, Puerto Deseado, Patagonia. Weather: clear skies, dry wind from the south, chill in the air. We reached Port Desire this morning, anchoring in the narrow inlet under a pale dawn sky. The land is barren but beautiful in its own way. Rocky hills that rise like folded parchment, cliffs of ochre and cream, and a wind that cuts through every layer of cloth as though the skin itself were unwelcome. This place is desolate. There are no signs of habitation, only birds in great flocks, and the tracks of guanacos along the ridges. Still, it is a welcome sight to all aboard. After weeks without shore, even this rugged slice of earth feels sacred. We lowered boats and went ashore in shifts. There is a fresh stream running from inland hills, and McGraw quickly oversaw the replenishment of our casks. Hunters returned with seabirds and 2 hares. It is lean fare, but it will do. I allowed the men the gift of stillness. No rum, no music, just the sound of boots on stone and the cry of wind through empty places. Some sat and carved bits of wood, others walked alone along the shore. I believe this quiet did them more good than any celebration. I climbed a rise just past noon and looked west. Beyond these hills lies the vast nothing between here and the Pacific. The Strait of Le Maire is still ahead, and with it the worst winds known to sailors. But for now we rest. Tonight I write by lantern light, the ship motionless for the first time in many days. Selkirk's story lies still ahead, but somehow I already feel the edges of it. A man, alone, shaped by wind and time. Perhaps because I see that shape forming within myself as well. Logbook entry, January 6th, 1709. Location, Strait of Le Maire, Tierra del Fuego. Weather, fierce westerly gales, overcast, waves cresting violently. At dawn, the jagged cliffs of Tierra del Fuego rose like ancient teeth from the sea, sharp and unmoving in the spray and mist. The Strait of Le Maire stretches before us now, a narrow passage between the continent and Staten Island, known to few and feared by many. The wind here howls through the rigging like a voice made of ice, and the sea bucks with every gust. We entered the strait under reduced sail, cautious and ready to turn back if the current proved too strong. The Duke strained forward, her timbers groaning but sound. The Duchess follows close astern, riding each swell like a hound pacing its master. The charts are vague, the waters treacherous. Rocks lie just beneath the surface like traps set by Neptune himself. I stood at the helm for 3 hours, eyes fixed on the shoreline, knuckles white. We cleared the worst of the rocks by early afternoon, but not without trial. One wave struck us amidships and tore away a length of railing. No men lost, but a sobering reminder. Courtney's vessel fared worse. Her mizzen was damaged when a sail caught awkwardly during a sudden squall. We lost sight of her briefly in the mist, and for a moment I feared we would be alone. But she emerged again, limping yet afloat. I ordered signal flags hoisted, and we rejoined course just after sunset. The temperature has plummeted. Ice forms along the gunwales by morning, and the breath of every man hangs in the air like fog. Routines have become ritual now, scanning the horizon, adjusting sail trim, hammering ice from lines and fittings. No one complains. Complaints cost warmth. Tonight we anchor in the lee of a small inlet on Staten Island. The wind is less cruel here, though still constant. I walk the deck beneath a sky clearer than I have seen in weeks. The stars were like salt scattered across black velvet, and Orion stood sentinel in the south. Dampier passed here years ago. His words in the margin of my copy: "The strait is narrow but true. Follow the western light." I did, and it brought us through. Tomorrow we continue northward into the Pacific at last. A new chapter begins. Logbook entry, February 1st, 1709. Location, Pacific Ocean, west of Tierra del Fuego. Weather, unpredictable gusts, driving rain, swells mounting with intermittent calm. We have rounded the continent's claw. Tierra del Fuego lies behind us, cloaked in mist and memory. Ahead stretches the Pacific, vast, unknowable, and, thus far, cruel. Since clearing the strait, we have found no peace. The wind, though less frenzied than before, shifts with no loyalty. One moment it dies, and we hang in silence, sails limp, ship groaning in stillness. Then it returns as a sudden lash, tearing canvas and soaking every man before orders can be shouted. The men call it the devil's breathing. Courtney's Duchess remains in sight most days, though at times we lose her in rain or squall. Her repairs hold, but she limps slightly still. I admire his tenacity, though I note that his crew grows quieter by the day. One fears what one does not name. Below deck, our stores have shifted. A barrel of flour split during a violent tack. Keane salvaged what he could, but we must now ration harder. I've halved the rum to quell restlessness, and each man feels it. Even McGraw speaks less and watches the sky as though expecting judgment. Yesterday we saw no birds. Today a single albatross circled high, far above our tallest mast. It did not call nor dive, but merely glided in slow spirals before disappearing westward. The men believe it to be Selkirk's ghost, or perhaps a guide. I said nothing. I do not speak to omens. I spend hours in my cabin with Dampier's pages, but even his words feel distant now, blurred by salt and fatigue. The ink runs in places, as if the ocean itself has tried to edit his thoughts. I envy him his ending. And yet, we sail on. We chart our position daily, now well north of the Horn. The charts show islands, barely more than dots and names scrawled in Latin and doubt. Among them, the Juan Fernandez Archipelago. It is there we shall turn westward and watch the horizon. If the tale is true, then Selkirk lives. If not, we will find only silence. The men know the story. A sailor marooned, years alone, living by tooth and fire. They whisper of it at night, like children telling ghost tales. But in their eyes, I see not fear, but yearning. For even in isolation there is something romantic in survival. Soon we will reach that island. Soon we will know. The sea is quieter tonight, not calm, but listening. Logbook entry, February 12th, 1709. Location, Mas a Tierra, Juan Fernandez Islands. Weather, brisk sea wind, patchy sun, lingering mist over the ridgelines. At first light we sighted land, a dark shape on the western horizon, rising like a memory from the sea. As we drew closer, it revealed itself, steep cliffs draped in green, with ridges like spines and valleys that fell away into shadow. The island was beautiful in a way that unnerves, a place untouched, defiant, and wholly apart from time. We anchored off the northern shore, where a small cove offered shelter. From the deck I saw signs, a patch of smoke drifting above the trees, too steady to be accident, a clearing with unnatural symmetry, faint movement where no beast could be. I ordered the launch prepared. 6 men rowed with me toward shore. We landed upon coarse sand ringed by volcanic rock. The air smelled of salt, moss, and fire. Before we could call out, a figure emerged from the trees. He looked not like a man, but a ghost formed of skin and beard, clad in stitched goatskins, barefoot, sun-darkened, eyes sharp with the brightness of solitude. He did not run. He stood still, as though he had been waiting, not for rescue, but for confirmation that the world still existed. "I am Selkirk," he said, voice dry and steady, "and you are late." He laughed after saying it, a sound like brittle leaves. One of the men wept. I stepped forward and offered my hand. He took it. His palm was calloused, fingers rough as bark. Behind his beard, he smiled, a smile that held no bitterness. Back aboard the Duke, we gave him broth, clean linen, and quiet. He spoke little, yet every word carried the weight of years. He had hunted goats, tamed cats, carved flints, and counted days until they no longer mattered. "Time is a thing for the crowded," he said, "not the alone." That night I stood on deck and looked toward the island. Mist moved through the trees like breath. I felt something settle within me, an understanding I had not sought. Selkirk had lived beyond the edge of the world and returned, not broken, but reformed. A man carved by silence and the patience of earth. There are whispers in every landfall. This one said, "Remember, you are never truly lost if you learn to live where you are." Tomorrow we sail again. Logbook entry, March 9th, 1709. Location, South Pacific off the coast of Peru. Weather, hot sun, calm waters, scattered clouds on the eastern horizon. We have sailed northward for nearly a month since parting with the lonely island that once held Selkirk. The Pacific here is deceptively gentle. Long swells roll beneath a blue sky, and the sails hang heavy with salt-crusted ease. Yet beneath this stillness lies the edge of Spain's reach. Selkirk grows stronger by the day. He walks the deck each morning, speaks to the crew, and helps the quartermaster with charts and gear repairs. Though his voice is still rough, he speaks now with purpose. The men call him the Island Ghost, though they do so with affection. I have seen sailors twice his size listen when he tells them how to trap a goat with only twine and patience. Our plans shift now toward prize-taking. Reports from earlier in the voyage suggested Spanish treasure galleons move up and down this coast, slow and burdened with goods from Lima and Panama. We have altered our course to follow a rumored convoy bound for Callao. Courtney, flush with ambition, has grown restless. He pushes hard for action. I see fire in him now. Whether it warms or consumes, I cannot say. We meet nightly to discuss strategy. His men trust him, and that will matter when cannon roar. Selkirk offered one warning. The ships you seek know these waters better than you. They are not blind. They are hunted, yes, but not helpless. He's right. We sail into not just foreign seas, but hostile ones. I've doubled watches and ordered repairs to all rigging. Powder is checked, cannon cleaned, grapples sharpened. The decks smell of pitch and sweat. Last night, the lookout cried sail, but it proved only a merchant cutter too far to catch. Still, the pulse of the hunt quickens. The crew tastes it like salt on the air. I spend my hours with Dampier's maps and Selkirk's observations. Between the two, we thread this stretch of ocean like a narrow channel between rocks. We sail now in silence and sunlight, but war is close, closer than calm admits. And yet, as I sit with this logbook, I wonder if the real war is not against Spain or storm, but the pull between what we were and what this voyage is making us. The Pacific is wide, but it leaves little room to remain unchanged. Logbook entry, April 4th, 1709. Location, near the port of Guayaquil, coastal waters of New Granada. Weather, cloud-dappled sky, humid air, light swells. Today we sighted smoke on the northern horizon. By midday, sails followed. 3 Spanish merchantmen, lumbering under cargo and poor command. It was not the rich convoy we had hoped for, but the chance was too ripe to pass. We gave chase. The Duke cut windward, the Duchess veering south to flank. Our cannon were primed. Selkirk stood beside the gun crews, offering steady guidance. He has become part of the ship's rhythm now, though his sea legs still falter in a sudden swell. As we closed distance, the lead Spanish ship attempted a desperate tack, but their helmsman botched it, and her sails twisted against the mast like a netted bird. We fired a warning shot across the bow. The second missed wide, but the third struck home, splintering her foredeck and driving her crew into shouts and surrender. The other two vessels turned seaward, one shedding ballast to gain speed. We pursued, but they slipped past the shallows under moonlight and vanished beyond the headland. One prize is better than none. We boarded her cautiously. She carried no treasure, only lumber, wine, and salted meat. But she was clean, well-rigged, and her papers told of Spanish concerns upriver. More than goods, she gave us intelligence. I have divided the crew and sent some aboard the captured vessel. We have renamed her the Esperanza, a hopeful irony. Courtney has called this a poor catch. He paces the deck, hungry for gold and glory. But I have reminded him, quietly, that not all prizes are counted in coin. Knowledge, positioning, morale, all have value before the next strike. This evening I stood at the stern and watched the Esperanza sail in line behind us. It is a strange thing to command another man's ship, taken in daylight, turned without blood. War on the sea is rarely noble, but tonight we sail with one more mast to our name. Tomorrow we plan. The coast of New Granada winds north, and with it, opportunity. Logbook entry. April 22nd, 1709. Location: coastal waters en route to Panama. Weather: hazy skies, strong sun, moderate breeze from the northwest. Selkirk's recovery astonishes even my most skeptical officers. He rises early and works among the crew as if the years of isolation had not scarred him. Yet at night, I sometimes find him atop the quarterdeck alone, eyes fixed on the horizon, lips moving in some silent conversation with memory. He speaks sparingly of his years marooned, but what he does reveal is profound. He spoke last evening of the rhythms of solitude, how the wind became his clock, the surf his counsel. How one learns in time that the world continues without you, but in your bones you feel every hour of its passage. He is not mad, as some feared, but he is changed. I asked if he ever feared he would be forgotten. He answered, "Not by the sea." As we draw closer to the Spanish strongholds in Panama, the mood aboard grows taut. Courtney has recovered his spirit, and now drills his crew daily. The men grumble but obey. They know the waters ahead are rich and dangerous. Our plan is to intercept Spanish galleons departing from Panama or Cartagena, then strike with speed before they can regroup. Selkirk has offered surprising insights into coastal patterns, noting coves and currents dampier mist. The Esperanza keeps pace well, her Spanish crew now fully replaced by our men. I have given her to First Lieutenant Redding, a quiet man with sharp instincts. He and Selkirk have become unlikely friends, perhaps kindred spirits, both burdened with memory. Tonight, the moon rides high and clear. I stood beside Selkirk under its light, and he said, "Some nights I forget the island had an end." I replied, "Some voyages never do. Ahead, gold and gunpowder await, but the truest prize may be the man we brought from that island, proof that some are never truly lost." Logbook entry, May 14th, 1709. Location: Gulf of Panama. Weather: oppressive humidity. Intermittent squalls, heavy haze at dawn. At dawn, the lookout called sail. Through the drifting mist, two shadows emerged on the horizon. Merchant galleons heading northwest, heavy with silver and guarded by a light escort. Our signal flags rose without hesitation. The Duke and Duchess fell into position, with the Esperanza circling wide. The sea was near breathless, each ship creeping like a cat on velvet. When the breeze caught, we surged. Our opening broadside found the stern of the trailing escort, shattering its rudder and sending her off course. The second galleon, seeing our formation, veered toward the coast, but she had not the wind, and Reading brought Esperanza across her bow, cutting escape. The battle was short and brutal. We took the ships with minimal loss, 6 wounded on our side, a dozen Spaniards dead, including their captain who fought with sabre drawn even after boarding. The spoils are rich: silver ingots, hides, spices, and crates of cacao. We allowed the surviving crew to flee in lifeboats, save for their quartermaster, whom I questioned. He said more ships would follow in a fortnight, cargo runs from Lima and Cartagena. He may be lying, or he may have sealed their fate. Selkirk watched the fight from the upper deck, face unreadable. Afterward, I found him helping carry barrels below. He said only, "This is a different kind of island." Courtney has grown louder again, his ambition refueled by coin. But I caution restraint. The Spanish now know we are near. We must choose our next prize carefully, or risk losing all. Tonight, I walk the deck beneath a sky full of fireflies, not from nature, but from musket flares burned into the backs of my eyes. Victory comes with ghosts. I name them silently, then close my log. The sea whispers on. Tomorrow it may roar. Mention. Logbook entry. May 14th, 1709. Location, Gulf of Panama. Weather, oppressive humidity, intermittent squalls, heavy haze at dawn. At dawn, the lookout called sail. Through the drifting mist, 2 shadows emerged on the horizon. Merchant galleons heading northwest, heavy with silver and guarded by a light escort. Our signal flags rose without hesitation. The Duke and Duchess fell into position, with the Esperanza circling wide. The sea was near breathless, each ship creeping like a cat on velvet. When the breeze caught, we surged. Our opening broadside found the stern of the trailing escort, shattering its rudder and sending her off course. The second galleon, seeing our formation, veered toward the coast. But she had not the wind, and Reading brought Esperanza across her bow, cutting escape. The battle was short and brutal. We took the ships with minimal loss, 6 wounded on our side, a dozen Spaniards dead, including their captain who fought with sabre drawn even after boarding. The spoils are rich: silver ingots, hides, spices, and crates of cacao. We allowed the surviving crew to flee in lifeboats, save for their quartermaster, whom I questioned. He said more ships would follow in a fortnight, cargo runs from Lima and Cartagena. He may be lying, or he may have sealed their fate. Selkirk watched the fight from the upper deck, face unreadable. Afterward, I found him helping carry barrels below. He said only, "This is a different kind of island." Courtney has grown louder again, his ambition refueled by coin. But I caution restraint. The Spanish now know we are near. We must choose our next prize carefully, or risk losing all. Tonight, I walk the deck beneath a sky full of fireflies. Not from nature, but from musket flares burned into the backs of my eyes. Victory comes with ghosts. I name them silently, then close my log. The sea whispers on. Tomorrow it may roar. Logbook entry, June 18th, 1709. Location: Pacific Ocean, northwest of Panama. Weather: heavy skies, low thunder, sluggish seas. The heat hangs on us like a fever. We sail north by northwest now, hugging the coast, but far enough to avoid the Spanish patrols that have grown more vigilant with each galleon we take. 2 weeks past the Panama prize, and already our holds groan with silver, hides, and crates of cacao. Yet fortune tempts ruin. Word will have reached Lima. Selkirk has become more than a curiosity, his quiet industry now a quiet anchor. The men watch him with a sort of reverence. A few ask his advice, not just on island herbs or survival, but matters of the heart and spirit. He answers like a man who has learned how little most answers matter. We passed a fishing village by night, torchlights flickering on the shore like the glint of a blade's edge. Courtney wanted to sack it, quick and dirty, but I refused. We are not butchers, not yet. The men grumbled but kept discipline. This morning we spotted sails far to the west. We gave chase, but the wind betrayed us. They slipped away, merchants or perhaps scouts. There is talk now of crossing the Pacific. Some fear it, others crave the change. McGraw reports we have enough water for 6 weeks, food for 8, if rationed. The men are strong, if wary. I weigh the risks by candlelight, comparing Dampier's ink to my own instinct. Selkirk, though still quiet, has begun to laugh. Not often, and never loudly, but in the evenings, when the wind is low and someone tells a tale too tall for truth, I see his shoulders shake. He stands a little straighter now. I believe the sea is giving him back to himself. We chart a course soon, and the horizon deepens. Logbook entry, July 23rd, 1709. Location: Open Pacific, en route to the Mariana Islands. Weather: endless blue sky, suffocating heat, sea like molten glass. We are alone, in the most profound sense. No land, no sails, no birds above. Only the curve of the earth and the soft creak of timbers as we drift beneath a sun too bright to look upon. It has been nearly 3 weeks since we last saw land or enemy. The winds die for days at a time, leaving us to bake on the deck like salted meat. The water turns brackish, the bread soft with weevils. Men grow gaunt and silent. I see eyes that scan the horizon not with hope, but with dread of its emptiness. McGraw keeps the men busy, scrubbing decks, knotting rope, counting beans, but even he cannot swab despair. 2 have fallen sick, not plague, but fever, and the sea's long whisper. Selkirk tends them with quiet grace. He speaks little, but does what must be done. There is something in him that survives beyond hardship. Courtney's men mutter more than ours. I hear them at night, when the sails slap idle and the rats scratch in the hold. He no longer joins me for supper. Each morning I climb to the foredeck and scan the sea. Each evening I write, though some days there is nothing to record but the continued absence of all things. This is the place Dampier warned of, the vast dead heart of the ocean. But he wrote only its sighs, not its silence. That is what I must carry now. And yet even here in the stillness, the voyage breathes. Somewhere beyond this horizon, the world waits. We sail on toward it. Logbook entry, September 4th, 1709. Location: approaching Batavia, Dutch East Indies. Weather: sweltering heat, thick haze, sea calm but oppressive. We approach Batavia under a haze so thick It seemed the sky itself had descended to greet us. The sea lay flat and dull, the colour of tarnished brass, and the heat pressed against skin and timber alike, as if the world were holding its breath. The harbour unfolded before us in muted layers, low buildings, red-tiled roofs, and the tall masts of East Indiamen rising above a fringe of palm and jungle. Dutch flags stirred listlessly in the stifling air. There was no welcome, nor was one needed. Batavia rose like a fortress at the edge of the tropics, swathed in the illusion of civility and the reality of fever. Though Britain and the Dutch Republic are allies in Europe, at sea we are all watched, weighed, and seldom trusted. The VOC governs this place like a city-state, efficient, unyielding, and slow to share its bounty. We raised no protest when their harbour sentries signalled inspection. Better to enter as guests than be suspected as raiders. Repairs were limited but essential. The Duchess had suffered sprung planks near her stern post during the gales off the Horn, and several yards of sail from the Duke were riddled with mildew and tears. We bartered for canvas, pitch, and new cordage from a Dutch shipwright, stern but fair, who insisted on inspecting every inch of damage himself before quoting his price. He wore a lacquered hat, moved with a limp, and had the eyes of a man who knew ships better than most knew their own children. The Dutch asked no questions about our prizes. That silence said more than any interrogation might have. One VOC officer gave a long look at our patched sails, weathered decks, and the haunted eyes of men who had seen too much water. He nodded once, not warmly, but not without respect. I permitted no shore leave. Batavia is as deadly as it is grand. Malaria and dysentery bloom here like wildflowers. One of Courtney's men defied my order and slipped ashore. He was found by morning, burning with fever, delirious, clinging to a barrel as if it were a mother's breast. He died by sundown. Selkirk remains reserved. He fashioned a crude carving of a goat from driftwood, and I often find him staring toward the shoreline, though I doubt he sees it. His thoughts are marooned elsewhere. The island has not let go of him, nor he of it. We took on water, some cured fish, and 3 crates of nutmeg, bought dear. Repairs are near complete. The men grumble but obey. Soon we will quit this place and turn westward. For now we float in uneasy peace, patched together with rope, salt, and memory. I feel the sea call again, not as whisper now, but as warning. Logbook entry, October 11th, 1709. Location, Indian Ocean, en route to the Cape of Good Hope. Weather, relentless sun, occasional squalls, stiff southeasterly wind rising. We have left Batavia behind, its spice-laden air and lurking fevers receding with every league westward. The Duke and Duchess sail now under full canvas, bellies taut with wind, the rigging groaning in satisfaction after weeks of stillness. The ocean here is vast, but different. It lacks the menace of the Horn or the mystery of the Pacific. It is a sea of endurance, not drama. Yet it is not gentle. The doldrums gripped us for 7 days past Java Head. The sky was a lid of brass, the sea without pulse. Men stripped to their waists and lay on deck like felled cattle, tongues dry and patience thinner still. We floated in place, becalmed in a silence thick as treacle, until the winds returned, sharp and sudden, as if to scold us for our longing. Courtney has grown more subdued. He still prowls the deck, bark at the ready, but he no longer boasts of ports or plunder. He watches the horizon now, as though trying to guess what form fate might take next. Our water holds. Food, however, runs low. What we could take from Batavia was costly and modest. We catch what we can from the sea, flying fish, an unfortunate albatross, even squid drawn in on the bow wave at night. The cook makes stew that smells of everything and nothing. Still, the men eat, and no one has fallen ill since we passed out of the tropics. Selkirk has begun speaking more often. Not much, but enough. He helps the new boys with knots, corrects their mistakes without scolding. I caught him singing yesterday. Something soft, a Scottish tune about a lark and a loch. The sound floated above the waves and vanished. He did not notice me listening. I have begun to write again in the margins of Dampier's journal. Notes of my own, not corrections, but continuations. He passed this way once, though in failure. We, God willing, may yet return in triumph. The sky turns violet tonight, the sun bleeding out like a lamp behind silk. The men are quiet. A wind fills the mainsail steady and true, and the stars come out like old companions. Africa lies ahead. We aim to round the Cape before the monsoon shifts, before the sea turns cruel once more. I feel the weight of home now, not in sight, but in scent, in memory, in the shape my heart takes at night. There is more journey yet to write. Logbook entry, November 17th, 1709. Location, Southern Indian Ocean, nearing the Cape of Good Hope. Weather, towering grey clouds, violent squalls, seas heaving with force. We rounded the Cape today, not in triumph, but in tenacity. For days the sky had darkened by degrees, and by dawn it gave way entirely to the fury of the sea. The winds came howling from the southwest, a roaring choir that battered sails and bone alike. The waves rose like dark cathedrals, each crest threatening to consume us whole. At the height of the storm, the Duke pitched hard to starboard. A spar snapped with a sound like cannon fire. 2 men were thrown against the gunwale. One broke his arm, the other lost 2 fingers to the capstan. The Duchess fared little better. Her foremast cracked at the base and had to be hastily secured with chain and prayer. Courtney's men worked like demons, and I credit their quick hands for preventing a dismasting. I remained at the helm for near 3 watches, soaked to the bone, shouting orders over the wind. At one point, lightning struck the sea no more than a cable's length away. It glowed blue and hissed like a dragon. The air itself seemed to split in 2. We had hoped to replenish stores at the Cape, perhaps even anchor in Table Bay. But the violence of the storm left no window for landfall. We are too battered to linger, too proud to crawl back. We make for the open sea instead, heading northward into the Atlantic. Below deck, the surgeon tends the wounded with what little he has. McGraw tells me we've lost 2 barrels of salted meat and nearly a ton of iron ballast. The pump creaks endlessly. And yet, we endure. The men curse the sea, but they do not falter. Selkirk helped secure the rigging during the worst of it, and though he rarely speaks, I saw in his eyes the strange calm of a man who has lived through worse. Tonight, the storm has moved eastward, its fury spent. We drift under bruised clouds, sails torn but ship intact. I sleep beside a lantern with Dampier's notes open and unread. They offer no comfort here, only the knowledge that others too have fought to stay afloat. There is nothing romantic in this part of the voyage, only wet wood, broken rope, and aching limbs. And yet, I feel a kind of peace. The Cape has not broken us. Let the next chapter begin. Logbook entry, December 23rd, 1709. Location, Mid-Atlantic, en route to St. Helena. Weather, clear skies, light breeze, sea gentle and slow. The sea today is merciful. After the fury of rounding the Cape, this calm feels almost divine. The Duke glides across the ocean's skin, her sails full and silent, the wind a whispered promise of safe harbours to come. The men have begun to shed the fatigue of the storm. There is laughter again on deck, quiet, respectful, but real. McGraw led a group in patching the sails with threadbare precision, and even Keane, our surly cook, prepared a meal that resembled something close to festive. Dried fish stewed with cloves and a scrap of lemon rind. It lifted spirits more than rum. Selkirk has become something of an anchor among the crew. They respect him, perhaps even fear him a little. He has survived the solitude of an island and the roar of the Cape. What more can the sea throw at him? We are bound for St. Helena, that lonely rock in the South Atlantic. It will offer us water, fruit, and perhaps a few days' rest. I plan to let the men ashore in small groups, cautiously. Though the island belongs to the English, it is a crossroads for every flag and every tongue, and not all sailors carry goodwill. Courtney seems calmer. We shared a quiet evening on deck, drinking watered wine and comparing charts. I believe the near disaster off the Cape has humbled us both. There is a strange bond that forms between men who survive storms at sea, one not easily put into words. Tonight, the moon rises full and bright, casting the sea in silver. I write with a steady hand, the lantern swaying gently with the ship's motion. There is peace in this moment, a rare and golden thing. We are a long way from home, but for now we sail smooth. Let that be enough. Logbook entry, December 30th, 1709. Location, James Bay, St. Helena. Weather, sun-drenched skies, steady trade winds, warm and fragrant. We anchored in James Bay this morning, the basalt cliffs of St. Helena rising like the cracked bones of some ancient beast from the sea. The island is a marvel of contradictions. Lush valleys carved into black volcanic stone, waterfalls that seem to fall from nowhere, and winding paths lost beneath canopies of breadfruit and banyan. A prison in paradise. The English garrison greeted us with wary courtesy. They had heard tales of our voyage, distorted through passing ships, some claiming we sailed as heroes, others as cutthroats. I assured the governor of our letter of marque, and though his eyes lingered on our damaged masts and gaunt faces, he raised no objection. Permission to rest and resupply was granted, though under watch. We took on fresh water and firewood, and I purchased salted pork, yams and a small crate of tobacco from a merchant whose accent bore traces of Bristol and Bengal both. His prices were cruel, but our need greater. The men were allowed ashore in groups of 12. Some wandered into the town, others to the hills. A few, I suspect, sought company where coin could open doors. I did not interfere. This island has long been a place for sailors to forget what waits at sea. Selkirk spent much of his time walking alone among the rocky paths, eyes always to the sky or the horizon. He avoids the company of the garrison and drinks nothing stronger than tea. There is something unspoken in him, an alertness that has not dulled with rescue. He told me once he fears the silence will follow him back to England. Courtney has softened some. He invited me to dine with him ashore, and though the food was coarse and the wine barely passable, the talk was easy. We spoke of Dampier, of London, of the possibility, however distant, of command beyond the sea. But I cannot shake a strange foreboding. St. Helena is beautiful, but it feels still, as if waiting for something to break the surface. A ship from the East India Company docked beside us today. Her crew is haggard and weary, her sails stained and sun-bleached. They bring news from Batavia and whispers of war brewing in Europe again. So far from home, the world reshapes itself without us. Tomorrow we sail again. The winds favour a northwesterly course. Ahead lies the open Atlantic, and beyond it, home, or what remains of it after 3 years lost to water and weather. For now, I write beneath a strange star, not one I know from charts, but one that watches nonetheless. Logbook entry, January 10th, 1710. Location, North Atlantic, 5 days sail from St. Helena. Weather, cool breeze from the southeast, gentle current, sky marbled with cirrus. The wind holds steady behind us, and the sea, for now, is kind. The Duke and Duchess sail in patient tandem, their hulls no longer protesting every wave, their rigging sighing rather than screaming. After the violence of the Horn and the uneasy rest at Batavia, this stretch feels, oddly, like grace. Each sunrise now brings cooler air, a soft reminder that we are climbing latitude by latitude toward Europe. The Southern Cross, once our familiar companion, has dipped below the horizon. The Great Bear returns to the sky. We are going home. The crew keeps to their work with a quiet diligence. There is less talk of gold, less boast of prizes. Instead, I hear men speaking of farms, sisters, rivers, and roofs. The homes they left. Some whole, some gone. Keen, ever the curmudgeon, is carving a flute from driftwood. He says nothing about it, just works, sandpaper, and silence. Selkirk has found purpose in routine. He checks knots, sharpens tools, helps where needed without instruction. The men speak to him in low tones, as though not to startle the stillness inside him. I asked him yesterday what he plans once we make England. He said, "That depends on how much of me made it off the island." Courtney and I reviewed the logs again today. Our charts show we should cross the equator within a fortnight. After that, the doldrums, perhaps, and then the sharper winds of the north. Supplies hold well, though the salted meat grows tougher by the week, and the lemons are long gone. McGraw insists we're better off now than we were 6 months past, and for once, I agree. Tonight we sail beneath a crescent moon. The sails glow faintly with the light, stretched tight against a wind that seems almost playful. The ship feels lighter, not just in ballast, but in burden. We are not yet safe. The sea never guarantees anything but movement, but there is a rhythm now, and for the first time in years it hums with the sound of return. Let us ride it home. Logbook entry, January 18th, 1710. Location, South Atlantic, approaching the equator. Weather, stifling heat, slack sails, air heavy and unmoving. We are nearing the line, and the sea has gone still. Not calm, still. A breathless, sweltering plain of water stretching in every direction, where the sky itself seems to hang, bored and indifferent. The Duke drifts like a forgotten thought, sails limp, canvas creaking from the weight of their own emptiness. This is the doldrums. No storm, no swell, no wind, only sun and silence. and it tests a crew more cruelly than any gale. The men sweat through their shirts before the second bell and mutter curses before the sixth. The decks are too hot to sit upon, and the air below is thick with salt and the sour tang of close bodies. Keane has taken to boiling herbs he claims ward off madness. I suspect he just misses the sting of drink. McGraw rations the water like a priest guarding relics. One of the younger lads, a powder monkey named Ellis, collapsed at midday. We shaded him and gave him lemon water, and he came round after a time. I fear more will fall if the wind does not return. There is only so long a man can float, even on hope. Selkirk spends his hours near the prow, eyes fixed ahead as if trying to will the horizon into movement. When I asked if he missed the stillness of his island, he shook his head once and said, "That stillness was earned. This one is punishment." I understood him better in that moment than in any other. Courtney paces like a caged hound. He has little patience for delay, and even less for powerlessness. We've argued twice this week, quietly, professionally, but pointedly. He would have the men row. I told him, it is madness to fight the sea with oars the size of broomsticks. He knows it too. The heat plays tricks with sound. At night, I hear whispers that vanish the moment I look up. Rigging creaks in rhythms too regular, too human. Even the stars feel closer, brighter, but somehow more watchful. I read Dampier again today. He spoke of this belt of silence with a sailor's disdain and a philosopher's wonder. I think he saw it as a mirror, the sea holding up the face of the man who sails it. We pray for wind, or rain, or even a squall to stir the heavens, anything to remind us that the world still moves. Until then, we drift, and listen to our own breath, and wait. Logbook entry, November 17th, 1709. Location, Southern Indian Ocean, nearing the Cape of Good Hope. Weather, towering grey clouds, violent squalls, seas heaving with force. We rounded the Cape today, not in triumph, but in tenacity. For days the sky had darkened by degrees, and by dawn it gave way entirely to the fury of the sea. The winds came howling from the southwest, a roaring choir that battered sails and bone alike. The waves rose like dark cathedrals, each crest threatening to consume us whole. At the height of the storm, the Duke pitched hard to starboard. A spar snapped with a sound like cannon fire. 2 men were thrown against the gunwale. One broke his arm, the other lost 2 fingers to the capstan. The Duchess fared little better. Her foremast cracked at the base and had to be hastily secured with chain and prayer. Courtney's men worked like demons, and I credit their quick hands for preventing a dismasting. I remained at the helm for near 3 watches, soaked to the bone, shouting orders over the wind. At one point, lightning struck the sea no more than a cable's length away. It glowed blue and hissed like a dragon. The air itself seemed to split in 2. We had hoped to replenish stores at the Cape, perhaps even anchor in Table Bay. But the violence of the storm left no window for landfall. We are too battered to linger, too proud to crawl back. We make for the open sea instead, heading northward into the Atlantic. Below deck, the surgeon tends the wounded with what little he has. McGraw tells me we've lost 2 barrels of salted meat and nearly a ton of iron ballast. The pump creaks endlessly. And yet, we endure. The men curse the sea, but they do not falter. Selkirk helped secure the rigging during the worst of it, and though he rarely speaks, I saw in his eyes the strange calm of a man who has lived through worse. Tonight, The storm has moved eastward, its fury spent. We drift under bruised clouds, sails torn, but ship intact. I sleep beside a lantern with Dampier's notes open and unread. They offer no comfort here, only the knowledge that others too have fought to stay afloat. There is nothing romantic in this part of the voyage, only wet wood, broken rope, and aching limbs. And yet, I feel a kind of peace. The Cape has not broken us. Let the next chapter begin. Logbook entry, December 23rd, 1709. Location, Mid-Atlantic, en route to St. Helena. Weather, clear skies, light breeze, sea gentle and slow. The sea today is merciful. After the fury of rounding the Cape, this calm feels almost divine. The Duke glides across the ocean's skin, her sails full and silent, the wind a whispered promise of safe harbours to come. The men have begun to shed the fatigue of the storm. There is laughter again on deck, quiet, respectful, but real. McGraw led a group in patching the sails with threadbare precision, and even Keane, our surly cook, prepared a meal that resembled something close to festive. Dried fish, stewed with cloves and a scrap of lemon rind. It lifted spirits more than rum. Selkirk has become something of an anchor among the crew. They respect him, perhaps even fear him a little. He has survived the solitude of an island and the roar of the Cape. What more can the sea throw at him? We are bound for St. Helena, that lonely rock in the South Atlantic. It will offer us water, fruit, and perhaps a few days' rest. I plan to let the men ashore in small groups, cautiously. Though the island belongs to the English, it is a crossroads for every flag and every tongue, and not all sailors carry goodwill. Courtney seems calmer. We shared a quiet evening on deck, drinking watered wine and comparing charts. I believe the near disaster off the Cape has humbled us both. There is a strange bond that forms between men who survive storms at sea, one not easily put into words. Tonight, the moon rises full and bright, casting the sea in silver. I write with a steady hand, the lantern swaying gently with the ship's motion. There is peace in this moment, a rare and golden thing. We are a long way from home, but for now we sail smooth. Let that be enough. Logbook entry, January 18th, 1710. Location, South Atlantic approaching the equator. Weather, stifling heat, slack sails, air heavy and unmoving. We are nearing the line, and the sea has gone still. Not calm, still. A breathless, sweltering plain of water stretching in every direction, where the sky itself seems to hang, bored and indifferent. The Duke drifts like a forgotten thought, sails limp, canvas creaking from the weight of their own emptiness. This is the doldrums. No storm, no swell, no wind, only sun and silence. And it tests a crew more cruelly than any gale. The men sweat through their shirts before the second bell and mutter curses before the sixth. The decks are too hot to sit upon, and the air below is thick with salt and the sour tang of close bodies. Keane has taken to boiling herbs he claims ward off madness. I suspect he just misses the sting of drink. McGraw rations the water like a priest guarding relics. One of the younger lads, a powder monkey named Ellis, collapsed at midday. We shaded him and gave him lemon water, and he came round after a time. I fear more will fall if the wind does not return. There is only so long a man can float, even on hope. Selkirk spends his hours near the prow, eyes fixed ahead as if trying to will the horizon into movement. When I asked if he missed the stillness of his island, he shook his head once and said, "That stillness was earned. This one is punishment." I understood him better in that moment than in any other. Courtney paces like a caged hound. He has little patience for delay, and even less for powerlessness. We've argued twice this week, quietly, professionally, but pointedly. He would have the men row. I told him it is madness to fight the sea with oars the size of broomsticks. He knows it too. The heat plays tricks with sound. At night, I hear whispers that vanish the moment I look up. Rigging creaks in rhythms too regular, too human. Even the stars feel closer, brighter, but somehow more watchful. I read Dampier again today. He spoke of this belt of silence with a sailor's disdain and a philosopher's wonder. I think he saw it as a mirror, the sea holding up the face of the man who sails it. We pray for wind, or rain, or even a squall to stir the heavens. Anything to remind us that the world still moves. Until then, we drift and listen to our own breath and wait. Logbook entry, October 14th, 1711. Location, River Thames, England. Weather, cold morning mist, calm tide, gulls calling from the banks. We have arrived. After 3 years, 2 oceans, and the memory of countless storms, the Duke lies anchored in the River Thames. The spires of London pierce the haze like old memories, familiar, but somehow foreign. The journey that began in the Downs with ambition and fire has returned with scars and silence. Of the men who left, most survived, a rarity among privateers. Of our prizes, some were taken, others lost. We return with honour, if not with riches. Selkirk stood at the rail as the shore came into view. He said nothing, just watched. I asked if he planned to stay in London. He said no. He'd find quiet work near the coast, maybe fishing. The sea is not done with him, nor he with it. Courtney shook my hand without words. We are not friends, but we are brothers in what we've endured. That is enough. As the tide slackens and the ship settles into her berth, I sit alone in my cabin one last time. Dampier's journal lies closed beside mine. The ink in my own book is smudged with salt, but the pages are full. This voyage changed us all. Some in ways we see, others in ways we'll never fully understand. The sea took much, but it gave us something too, a measure of ourselves. Let this be my final entry. May whoever finds these words, whether for history or for dreams, know that we were here, and we returned.